My 34M wife, 33F, made a minor accounting error. It revealed a 2-year affair and allowed me to legally drain her lover's bank account. I never thought I'd be writing one of these. You always think the guy who gets cheated on is either blind, neglectful, or ignoring massive red flags. But my wife, Sarah, and I were happy. Or so I thought. We've been married for 7 years, together for 10. No kids, just a golden retriever, and a comfortable life in the suburbs. I'm an actuary. My entire career is built on assessing risk and noticing anomalies in large data sets. Sarah is a senior HR director for a tech firm. We are both organized, type A, spreadsheet-loving people. Ironically, a spreadsheet is exactly how her second life unraveled. Every quarter, we sit down and do a financial health check. It's a habit we started when we were saving for our house. We review our joint accounts, credit cards, and auto-pays to see where we can trim fat. 3 months ago, during our Q2 review, I noticed our Easy Pass toll transponder auto-replenish had triggered 3 times in 1 month instead of the usual once. "Hey, did toll rates go up?" I asked her, pointing at the laptop screen. She didn't miss a beat. "Oh, probably. Or maybe it's because they've been doing that construction on I-90 and I had to take the turnpike detour a few times last month." It made perfect sense. I nodded, closed the spreadsheet, and we ordered Thai food. But because of what I do for a living, numbers stick in my head. A week later, I was driving her car to pick up dog food. I logged into the Easy Pass app on my phone to check the balance. Out of idle curiosity, I looked at the transit history. She hadn't been taking a detour on I-90. Every Tuesday and Thursday afternoon, between 2 p.m. and 4:30 p.m., her transponder registered at a toll booth heading into the city, specifically near the upscale River North district. She works in the completely opposite direction, and she works in an office, in person, Monday through Friday. My heart did a strange, heavy flutter. I didn't confront her. Instead, I went home and opened my laptop. I logged into our joint cell phone provider. I looked at her data and text logs for Tuesdays and Thursdays. Nothing suspicious. She was texting me, texting her mom, sending work emails, but then I noticed a gap. Every Tuesday and Thursday, exactly between 1:30 p.m. and 5 p.m., her phone used 0 cellular data. No background app refreshes, no texts, nothing. It was like her phone was turned off or in airplane mode for exactly 3.5 hours, twice a week. Suspicion is a poison. Once it's in your system, you can't think about anything else. I didn't want to believe she was cheating. I tried to rationalize it. Maybe she was taking a class, maybe she was seeing a therapist and didn't want to tell me. But the missing data and the toll roads nagged at me. The next Tuesday, I took a half day off work. I drove to the city and parked 3 blocks away from the toll plaza she always crossed. At 2:15 p.m., her white Audi rolled through the Easy Pass lane. I followed her at a safe distance. She drove straight to a luxury high-rise condo building in River North and pulled into the underground resident parking garage. I parked on the street and waited. I sat in my car for 2 hours, feeling like an absolute creep. But I needed to know. At 4:10 p.m., she walked out of the lobby. She wasn't alone. She was holding hands with a guy I instantly recognized. It was David. David is a high-end real estate developer. 2 years ago, Sarah's firm was handling the HR integration for a massive corporate merger, and David was a consultant they brought in. We'd had dinner with him and his wife multiple times. We'd been to their house for a 4th of July barbecue. I watched as David pulled her in for a deep, lingering kiss on the sidewalk. She smiled, touched his chest, and walked down the ramp to her car. I didn't confront them. I didn't scream. I just felt cold. My brain immediately shifted from husband mode to actuary mode. The marriage was over, but the dissolution of our life was going to be a math problem. I drove home, poured a scotch, and started digging. I knew that if she was careful enough to put her phone in the airplane mode to hide her location tracking, she was hiding other things. If she was leaving work in the middle of the day, she had an alibi. But how was she paying for this second life? David was wealthy, but Sarah is prideful. She wouldn't let a man pay for everything. I checked her car a few days later while she was asleep. I found a prepaid burner phone tucked inside the compartment with the spare tire. It was dead. I didn't have the charger, but I didn't need it. The existence of the phone was enough. Next, I needed to look at her finances. We have joint accounts, but a portion of our paychecks goes into individual checking accounts for no questions asked personal spending. I didn't have the password to hers, but I knew she kept physical copies of her important documents in a small lockbox in her home office. I know where she hides the key, taped under the bottom drawer of her desk. When she was at work the following Monday, I opened the box. Inside, I didn't find love letters or burner phone chargers. I found corporate documents, articles of organization for an LLC called Apex Holdings. I started reading. Apex Holdings was registered in our state 18 months ago. The principal address was David's downtown office, but the managing members listed on the operating agreement were David, Sarah, and me. I stared at the paper. Why was my name on this? I spent the next 3 days doing intense, quiet research. I reached out to a buddy who works in commercial banking, speaking purely hypothetically about LLC structures. Here is what I pieced together. David flips luxury commercial properties. 18 months ago, he found a distressed property, but was over-leveraged on other projects and couldn't secure traditional financing. He needed liquid cash to close the deal. Sarah, heavily in the fog of the affair, offered to invest. She took $85,000 out of a restricted stock unit, RSU, payout from her company. Money she had told me was being held in a locked corporate trust for another 3 years. To legally invest the money and get a return on the flip, they formed Apex Holdings. But because the $85,000 was technically marital property, and to avoid triggering red flags with the IRS or the bank regarding source of funds verification, David's lawyer advised them to put me on the LLC operating agreement as a 33% managing member. They forged my signature on the formation documents. They figured since David handled the taxes and Sarah intercepted our mail, I would never see a K-1 tax form or know the company existed. They used my marital assets to fund their affair and build a nest egg, entirely behind my back, while forging my signature. I called the best divorce attorney in the city. Her name is Brenda. Brenda is terrifying in the best way possible. I laid everything out on her desk, the toll records, the photos of them kissing I'd printed from a PI I hired, and the LLC documents. Brenda looked at the operating agreement, looked at me, and smiled. They made you a managing member, Brenda said, tapping her pen. Not a silent partner, a managing member. That means you have equal executive authority over the business entity. I know, I said. And the commercial property they bought 18 months ago? David just listed it for sale 3 weeks ago. It goes to closing next Friday. So, a large sum of liquid capital is about to be deposited into the Apex Holdings business account, Brenda mused. Exactly. Here was the twist. Because they forged my signature to make me a managing member to satisfy the bank's underwriting requirements, I legally had full access to the LLC. If I claimed forgery now, it would tie up the assets in litigation for years. But if I accepted my role as a managing member, I had legal authority to act on behalf of the company. I went to the bank where Apex Holdings held its corporate account. I brought my driver's license, my social security card, and the state registry printout showing me as an active managing member. I told the branch manager I needed to set up dual factor authentication on the online banking profile, claiming I had been locked out. Because I was verified on the original forged paperwork, they gladly helped me set up my own login credentials. For the next 2 weeks, I played the role of the perfect husband. I cooked dinner. I gave Sarah back massages. I smiled and asked about her day. It was psychological torture. Every time she kissed me, I thought about David's hands on her. Every Tuesday and Thursday when I knew she was at his condo, I went to the gym and hit a heavy bag until my knuckles bled. On Thursday, the property sale closed. I watched the bank account on my phone. At 11:30 a.m. on Friday, a wire transfer hit the Apex Holdings account. $1.2 million. My cut as a 33% member was roughly $400,000. Sarah's cut was $400,000. David's cut was $400,000. But the money wasn't distributed yet. It was sitting in the general operating account, waiting for David to manually push the distributions to their personal accounts. I didn't wait. At 11:35 a.m., I walked into my local branch of the same bank. I sat down with a personal banker. I presented my ID and my LLC credentials. I need to execute a wire transfer from the Apex Holdings corporate account, I said calmly. I am consolidating funds into a new account. Certainly, sir. How much would you like to transfer? All of it, $1.2 million. The banker didn't blink. I was a managing member. I had full fiduciary authority. I wired the entire $1.2 million balance into a brand new, single-member LLC bank account that I had set up 3 days prior under the advice of my attorney. It was an escrow-style holding account, completely legal, designed to secure disputed marital assets. By 12:15 p.m., the Apex Holdings account had a balance of $0. I drove home, packed 2 suitcases with my clothes, took the dog, and drove to an Airbnb I had rented for a month. At 2 p.m., my phone started ringing. It was Sarah. I ignored it. At 2:05 p.m., it rang again. Sarah, ignored. At 2:10 p.m., an unknown number called. I answered. What the fuck did you do? David was screaming so loud the speaker on my phone crackled. Hello, David, I said, my voice completely deadpan. I am just performing my fiduciary duties as a managing member of Apex Holdings. We had a security breach, so I moved the capital to a secure holding account. You stole my money. I'm calling the police. I'm going to ruin you, he roared. David, you forged my signature on federal bank documents to secure a commercial loan using my marital assets, I replied, staring out the window of the Airbnb. That's wire fraud and bank fraud, a federal offense, and you're having an affair with my wife. If you call the police, I hand over the original operating agreement to the FBI, along with the PI file detailing your affair. You'll lose your real estate license, your business, your wife, and you'll go to federal prison, or we let the divorce attorneys sort out the equity distribution. Dead silence on the other end of the line. I'll have my lawyer call your lawyer, David choked out and hung up. A few hours later, I was served Sarah with divorce papers via process server at her office. Update 1. It's been 3 months since D-Day. The fallout has been spectacular. When Sarah realized what I had done, she came to the Airbnb crying, screaming, and begging. She admitted to the affair, saying it was a mistake and just a fantasy getting out of hand. I didn't let her inside. I just handed her a folder containing the photos of her and David and closed the door. David's lawyer tried to intimidate Brenda with threats of suing me for breach of fiduciary duty. Brenda basically laughed him out of the room. She pointed out that because Sarah and David used marital funds, the $85,000, to seed the LLC, and because they committed fraud to establish it, the court would likely pierce the corporate veil. If this went to trial, David's entire business empire would be subject to discovery. David is a coward. When faced with the prospect of his legitimate investors finding out he mixes personal affairs, fraudulent signatures, and business capital, he caved. We reached a settlement out of court last week. To keep the fraud quiet and keep his business intact, David agreed to forfeit his share of the $1.2 million. He essentially bought my silence. As for Sarah, because we live in a state where adultery heavily influences the division of assets, and because she actively embezzled marital funds to finance her affair, her lawyer advised her to take the deal Brenda offered or risk getting completely wiped out by a judge. The deal was simple. I get the house, I get my entire pension and 401k. I keep the dog. Sarah gets to walk away with her personal checking account and her car. and the $1.2 million. Because it was generated using my initial marital capital and David forfeited his claim, it was split between Sarah and me. Except Sarah had to pay me back the $85,000 she stole, plus legal fees, plus a premium for the equity in the house she was forfeiting. By the time the math was done, I walked away with the house, zero debt, my dog, and over $900,000 in liquid cash. Sarah walked away with about $40,000 and an apartment lease she can barely afford. Update 2, final. The divorce is finalized. The ink is dry. Yesterday, I did the one thing I promised David I wouldn't do during the negotiations. I didn't go to the police or the FBI. I kept it strictly legal. But I didn't sign an NDA regarding his wife. I put copies of the PE's photos, the hotel receipts I found in Discovery, and the forged LLC documents into a manila envelope. I drove to the upscale suburb where David lives with his wife, and I dropped the envelope in their mailbox. I heard through the grapevine today that David is currently living in a hotel, and his wife has hired a forensic accountant. I'm sitting on my back porch right now. The dog is chewing on a bone. I'm drinking a really good glass of bourbon. It hurts that my marriage was a lie, and the betrayal still stings on quiet nights, but I'm 34. I have my whole life ahead of me, and I have the financial freedom to start over exactly how I want to. Always check your toll receipts, guys. You never know what kind of return on investment you might get.